welcome back to this channel. I am the Darklight Emissary, and this episode is on the Emperor's Wrath, or Knives, or as they are officially known, the Officio Assassinorum. This is an organization responsible for bringing the unrelenting power and wrath of the Emperor's authority to his enemies, wherever they can be found. This organization, in my opinion, is a great example of what it means for the Imperium to be one of the bloodiest, most horrible regimes imaginable. If you end up on the bad side of one of the High Lords of Terra or other high office holder in the Imperium, you may find yourself poisoned or outright disappear or obliterated in glorious gore with no signs on what was done to you, or every sign of what was done to you, depending on what the Imperium wants done to you. Often the most dangerous of enemies, as well as the most inconvenient ones, are taken down by one of the master assassins of the assassin temples. They are terror tactics distilled into an ice-cold precision killing machine. From primarchs to government officials who overstep their authorities, to some of the most deadly threats the Imperium faces, the members of the assassin temples ply their trades in the shadows to keep the authority of the Emperor absolute and without question. Once unleashed, there is no negotiations. Your days are numbered. The Officio Assassinorum is one of the most ancient organizations in the Imperium of Man. They have their origins in the Great Crusade, and even before in some ways. Malcador the Sigillite was the main founder of these assassin temples in an organized way, and in the beginning each temple or clade was ruled over by a master of assassins, with the Sigillite ruling anonymously at its head. For much of its early history during the Great Crusade, the Horus Heresy, and shortly after, the organization's master had autocratic authority, sometimes in collaboration with part of the Adeptus Custodes and other assassin leaders, to send out agents to take down enemies of the Imperium. However, this ultimate authority boiled over back onto the Imperium multiple times due to the absolute deadliness of these assassins. Shortly after the heresy, during the War of the Beast era, the Master of Assassins wiped out the current High Lords of Terra and took complete control of the Imperium for a time. This wasn't necessarily seen as a bad thing, ironically, since the High Lords of Terra were often seen as inept and corrupt by many more militarily minded and powerful leaders within the Imperium, including Astartes leadership. And I find this ironic because this was part of what led Horus and the traitor primarchs to fight against the Imperium, when their orders started coming from inept civilian-ran government instead of autocratically direct from the Emperor of Man or Malcador, or a similarly strong authority figure. Eventually, the assassin temples were reorganized to where only the Senator Imperialis and a Ordo of the Inquisition, known as Sicarius, was put into place to stringently oversee and control these deadly tools in the Emperor's arsenal. I will briefly go over every type of assassin temple, and as always, if you prefer a deeper dive on the subject, I can go into this deeper later for specific assassination attempts, methods, and so on, but this will be pretty comprehensive at the same time. The Vindicare Temple is your most straightforward clade of assassins. These individuals are your superlative snipers, but just like anything in this setting, they are more so than any sniper you've ever seen before. They have been known to spend entire years in a single location waiting for their target. While the Imperium may ultimately be a largely inefficient and horrible government, their assassins are the exception to this in every way, tireless and unrelenting until their job is done. The Calidus Temple is your most cunning and subtle of all the assassin temples. These guys can shapeshift using a drug known as polymorphine, which allows them to look like anyone they need to get close to an enemy without them realizing it. They are unrelenting in passing themselves off as something they are not. One example I found was an assassin that underwent surgery to help them appear like a gene stealer hybrid to infiltrate gene stealer cults. Most of this house are women, since the polymorphine works better with women biologically. Notably, this is the assassin house that was tasked with taking down the Primarch Conrad Kurtz. However, it must be noted that Conrad did not put up any sort of fight, and probably would have easily handled the assassin had he wanted to live in that moment. Later on, that assassin was tracked down and killed by Night Lords, proving this point. These assassins use some of the most subtle and odd weaponry available, such as digi-weapons, which are hidden in rings on a finger or otherwise can't be seen until it is much too late to react. The next temple is known as the Eversur Temple. I kind of find it funny these are even called assassins, because you do not send an Eversur to do something subtle or unnoticed. You are sending one of these to send a message to powerful organizations to not mess with the Imperium. These monstrous agents are drug-fueled into coldly focused, berserk, crazed killing sprees. They can and will wipe out entire hierarchies, corrupt noble families, and military targets in rapid, unrelenting fashion. Notably, these assassins can even stand up to Space Marines in direct combat, and during the earlier incident mentioned where a Master of Assassins took over the Imperium, a contingent of 200 Space Marines helped to depose that Master of Assassins, and he had 100 Eversors at his command who managed to wipe out this entire contingent of Space Marines except for their leader. Their main downside is that they are addicted to death and are suicidal. They are kept in a cryo-sleep in between assignments, assuming they survived them to begin with. They are basically a missile you launch at your target you really want to see dead. If an Eversor is killed in combat, they can detonate their own biochemistry with the force of a plasma bomb. If you want to utterly terrify your enemies and let them know without a shadow of a doubt the Emperor's wrath has come for you, the Eversor is who you sent. Our next temple is the Culexis Assassins. These are some of the most unique and rare of the assassins. They are pariahs, or humans with no presence in the warp. This makes them soulless and also able to shut down psychers in their vicinity from using their powers, so naturally these assassins are sent to take down powerful psychic threats to the Emperor. Even a normal person with a small presence in the warp will find any psychic blank like these highly uncomfortable to be around physically. These assassins are so deadly and powerful against psychers that one of the craft world Eldar, the Alatok craft world, sought the location of this temple to destroy it. They succeeded in finding it, but the Farseer of this craft world, a powerful psyker, saw in the future that destroying it would destroy the craft world, so they called off that attack. They have some very unique equipment, like the Animus Speculum, which is what gives them their fierce look with the Death Skull mask, and this mask somehow turns psychers' power against themselves in some sort of feedback loop as a major weapon against their targets. They also carry a device called an Ethereum, which makes enemies confused and the Culexis distorted to their view, making it impossible to focus on them. They also have the Psych Out grenades, which are rumored to utilize a substance from the Golden Throne itself. Even demons fear these assassins, who they can't even see, and will administer the Emperor's peace to them. I sometimes imagine that these beings exemplify the terror that the Emperor induces in demons made manifest. This temple is called the Venenum Temple. This next one. This one specializes in poisons and subtlety specifically. Notably, the Grandmaster of Assassins who took over the Imperium was the leader of this clade originally, and one of these assassins, named Tobeld, was closest to reaching Horus during the heresy in an assassination attempt. It wouldn't be 40k as a setting if they didn't go over the top with their machinations, and one assassin managed to assassinate 1,000 members of a rebel government by poisoning their chairs. There isn't too much more written about this specific clade that I can find or have seen over the years reading novels, and so that's really it about them. The next temple to talk about is known as the Vannis. These are unique type of assassins, used mostly to gather intelligence to be used by other assassin types or other forces of the Imperium, like the Inquisition. While they aren't necessarily known for directly assassinating targets, they can manipulate situations to cause an accident for a target if the opportunity arises. But they mostly deal in causing infrastructure failures and data collection through cybernetic animals like cyber evils, rats, and netfly swarms. And the last temple to talk about briefly is a bit of an odd one that I didn't really know about. It's called the Adamus Temple. These assassins they look like ninjas, and they specialize in observing their enemies' strengths and weaknesses, and then delivering a single devastating, decapitating strike to eliminate them. And I haven't really ever seen them in any novels over the last 15 to 17 years that I have read. So a bit of an interesting note there. It's one of those temples that I, upon re-researching this stuff, had not noticed before. Now, if you want to read more about these assassin houses, these temples, one of the books that I can recommend from the Horus Heresy era is the book Nemesis, where Constantine Baldur and Malcador assemble a group of assassins from each of these houses, which basically never happens, to try to go and take down Horus. As you can imagine, that's not how Horus was taken down, so things go badly, but it's a interesting book a bit unique compared to many of the novels in the Horus Heresy novel group. You get a good overview of what each of the assassins is capable of. The Eversur, and that is hilariously over the top. The Vindicare assassin is very buttoned up. I don't remember the other ones super well, but they are all pretty fascinating in that book. Now, other than that, I don't really have too much more to say about them. I just find them fascinating and a great example of the double-edged nature of the Imperium, its capacity for deadly vengeance upon its enemies and accidentally or maliciously upon itself too. This organization was one of the first ones I found when first discovering the 40k universe, and it showed just how insane it really is as a setting sometimes. One thing is for certain, you never want to end up on a list for one of the Emperor's knives. Once unleashed, it will find your spine eventually. So as always, thank you so much for your support so far on this channel. Please like and subscribe for more content like this. Leave a comment with your feedback or discussion on the topic at hand, or a request for a future video. And as always, bring your light into the dark places, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you and have a great day or night wherever you are, and we will see what we do next. I would like your suggestions for another video on what I should cover next. I'm thinking Craft World Eldar, but I would like your input as well. Thank you and have a great day or night. You